Pozdravljena, draga koncertna publika. Dobrodošli poslušalci in poslušalke na 4. sobotni izobraževalni matineji, na kateri se bom muzikologinja Maia Juvanc pogovarjala z maestrom Philippom von Steineckerjem in skladateljem Jörgom Widmannom. Pogovore smo predhodno posneli v angleščini in pripravili podnapise. Na posnetkih boste lahko sledili najprej pogovoru z dirigentom o glasbi Edgarda Varèsa in Thomasa Adèsa. Nato pa se nama nadaljavo po Zoomu pridruži še skladatelj Jörg Widmann. Člani in članice Orkestra Slovenske filharmonije vam bodo danes zaigrali glasbene primere iz skladb pričujočih 3 skladateljev. Maestro Steinaecker želi, da posebej poudarim, da so vse današnje izvedbe še v procesu izpopolnjevanja, tako da boste na koncertu 17. marca deležni še presenečenja. Preden se poglobimo v glasbene teme, na kratko še predstavim oba gosta. Nemški dirigent Philipp von Steinaecker se je sprva izobraževal kot violončelist. K dirigentskemu poklicu se je preusmeril na pobudo Claudia Abada. V svoji obsežni karieri je sodeloval z mnogimi vodilnimi solisti in pevci in vodil več pomembnih orkestrov, med katerimi so Mahlerjev komorni orkester, Škotski komorni orkester, Tokijski metropolitanski simfonični orkester, Švedski radijski simfonični orkester, Nova japonska filharmonija in Praška filharmonija. Dirigira tudi opernim produkcijam, med katerimi je bila še posebej uspešna Mozartova Čarobna piščal v Filharmoničnem gledališču v Veroni. Nemški sodobni skladatelj Jörg Widmann se je sprva uveljavil kot izstopajoči klarinetist. Študiral je na newyorški šoli Juilliard in kot solist nastopil z najprestižnejšimi orkestri, med katerimi so Orkester Gewandhaus iz Leipziga, Narodni orkester Francije, Orkester Tonhalle iz Züricha, Narodni simfonični orkester iz Washingtona in seveda z dunajskimi filharmoniki. Njegove skladbe in glasbene drame, v katerih se skladatelj dotika tudi zelo perečih tem, recimo tudi etičnih zagad kloniranja, se izvajajo pod taktirko dirigentov, kot so Daniel Barenboim, Valerij Gergijev, Maris Janssens in Simon Rattle. Zdaj vas povabim, da prisluhnemo pogovoru. So, Maestro Steinaecker, welcome to this Saturday matinee talk. We will talk about the program music that we will also experience at the concert on March 17th. I would like to start with Varèsa's work. He is the father of sound masses, so they call him, the sound sculptor. Originally, we were patient to hear Varèsa's Amérique, but due to the epidemic, the Slovenian Philharmonic replaced Amérique with Varèsa's chamber piece Octandre. There are many similarities between the two pieces, since they both delve into what was at the time a new way of sound conception. Varèsa was one of the first composers to embrace the technological aspects of sound production. Furthermore, in the vein of great technological advances which occurred at the turn of the century, he developed a taste for music that explodes, as he said himself. He imagined music composed of moving sound masses and shifting planes that collide and transform. He also redefined the process of composition by including all noises and sounds as equally important. The color and texture of sounds became a structural element. So, how does Octandre, a short chamber piece written for traditional wind instruments and double bass, reflect such ideas, and what do you think is important to listen for and appreciate in Octandre?
As you said, we were going to do Amérique, which is an incredible piece, and then they changed it to Octandre, which I thought was a great idea. Although I have to admit I didn't know it, which is I guess embarrassing because it's a very famous piece. And I'm struggling with it, so I just have to be honest. I'm struggling with it because I find it kind of over the top. And that's maybe also the way into the piece, that we understand, first of all, what's really astounding about the piece is that it's 100 years old. And it sounds like it could be written tomorrow. It sounds incredibly like modern music. And this is at a time when there wasn't that much modern music. I mean, of course, Schoenberg was writing, but that was like a new thing, and it was at that time very kind of local. That happened in Vienna, and it stayed in Vienna. Maybe Berlin, then he moved to Berlin, but like it wasn't. And Stravinsky was in Paris. He was doing his thing, and Varèsa in many ways feels like he's marrying these two worlds. Of course, he's not writing 12-tone music, but it's totally atonal music, and it has a very strong rhythmic. So he's making that step immediately. Like he sees these two people doing like their strange things, but both Schoenberg and Stravinsky are in some ways also very traditional. Varèsa takes all the modern stuff of those and combines it and goes to. It looks very elegant, and it looks sometimes very complex, but like what you say, like it looks like there are always layers. There are several colors that are being mixed at the same time. Why do I say that? Because you always see like, okay, these three people play together, and these two people, and then these two people, something like that, and they have like the same rhythm, but because they play the same thing, they are creating a color, and they are juxtaposed to a different color. A different rhythm, crafted, and much more sort of vertical, sometimes more vertical than anything by Schoenberg. In that sense, it's very Stravinskian, but it's less obsessed with rhythm than Stravinsky, I would say. But then when you listen to it, so I listened to several different recordings, and it just makes me really nervous. And I can't help it. It just makes me nervous, and it sounds like it's. So, but I think what makes me nervous are those recordings, and so I'm not going to say which ones they are. But I think the music is incredibly gestural. For example, it starts with this long oboe solo, very beautiful oboe solo. That's a little bit like the beginning of the Rite of Spring. I mean, it's like a famous. No, it's not a quote, but like he's evoking that kind of atmosphere of the bassoon solo. He's doing this oboe solo. But a lot of performances of this music, because it's rhythmically difficult and quite complex, they are correct and really impressive in that way. But I think they fail to grasp how this music depends on gestures, is real music. It's not an intellectual experiment, which, talking about densities and sound masses, it can. You could think like, okay, this guy sits at his table and thinks, okay, I'm going to have this mass and I'm going to put this mass. Let's see what happens. It's not like that. I think it's really composed. The lines speak, and they have clear gestures. I said it the third time, but I think it's so important. This is something he gets from both Stravinsky and Schoenberg. They both are very gestural composers in very different ways. And I think Varèsa gets that, and I think that to make this music really, really speak in a meaningful way. And I think as soon as music is just doing the notes correctly, it's just dead. Yeah, it happens, especially in complex pieces. Then musicians will try to do it really well, and yet it's not enough. So I think that will be it doesn't really answer your question, but that's the best I can do.
No, it does answer a lot. It also opens a few more questions of mine. So your reading is not going to be like Boulez's, very just the notes and...
You said that. You said that. I didn't say...
Yes, so you're the opposite.
Boulez wasn't... I should listen to the Boulez recording. It's one of... It's not the one.
The nervous...
It's not the one. Yes, I mean, Boulez loved Varèsa. He was a huge admirer of Varèsa. It's interesting because Boulez is such a different character, no?
So when we listen to the piece, it is nice to hear the Stravinsky Rite of Spring echoing in it. That's the way I hear it.
And it's a nice comment because he takes it to the next step also. Of course, it's also like 15 years later, so the world has moved on. But from the huge Stravinsky apparatus of like 120 musicians, he does it with 8, and the kind of the confusion of the texture is actually similar. So that I'm sure that's like one of the challenges he posed himself. Like, comment on this piece, but like, I can do this with 8.
Yeah, reductionist, yeah, very good. Perhaps it's good for us to now listen to the first music example of this matinee, we will listen to the ensemble play Varésa's first movement of Octandre. It seems that all three compositions by Adès, Varèsa, and Widmann have specific ties to musical echoes of the past, though each uses these echoes in their own way. In what way are these references to the past used in each composer's style? How do you see it, the differences?
Yeah, so, Varèsa, we talked about it before. There's I think he's really he's using certain aspects of the Rite of Spring, like I said, like the oboe solo, but there are also rhythmic elements where you have kind of moments of seeming chaos of the lines, like nobody goes with nobody, and then suddenly it's together and it's very very clear. That's like in clear rhythmic blocks, and then you always think of Stravinsky because and the Rite of Spring, like these kind of stumping things. So he's using something that's extremely contemporary to him, and then Adès does this wonderfully dreamy. It's really an orchestration of three Couperin pieces. I read somewhere that he says not a day goes by that he doesn't play Couperin on the piano. So he loves this music so much, and he made these arrangements, and I think they are incredibly wonderful because even though he doesn't change the notes or the music, the texture is so different, and it's like a, he uses an orchestra, of course, but he adds all these clunky sounds in the percussion. It's like the harpsichord, which is so haptic and makes these extra noises, and it's almost as if he's orchestrating his own performance of a piece. So it's like, I think it's the most personal one can do, and I think, of course, Ravel did that in the Tombeau de Couperin. There are also Couperin arrangements by Richard Strauss. That would be an interesting program also to do at one point, like a whole Couperin extravagance. But it's amazing that so the Ravel, the Tombeau de Couperin, it could only be impressionistic music. And the Adès, it could only be music of today. I mean, it's a 15-year-old piece or whatever. But it's obviously like a contemporary arrangement. I think that's sign of a great composer. Like you're so respectful in your arrangement, but you leave your mark in the most subtle ways. And so that's that. And then in Jörg Widmann's piece, that is based on a chorale that seems to be from a different time, but as he just told us, because we didn't know, it's really his own. But he writes it in a different style, and so he plays with old and new, and he kind of questions what is what, and he takes the meaning out of those terms. And I mean, I guess we didn't plan it that way, but that gives this program a really interesting theme of time and meaning of passage of time, and it's suddenly very philosophical and attractive.
And which of these three pieces is most touching to you?
Which one do I prefer? I couldn't say. Because they touch me in really different ways. So if I say the Varèse makes me nervous, that touches me also. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe not that I love that feeling, but music doesn't need to be only so beautiful. It doesn't need to be only that. Music that makes you nervous is also music that you can't stop thinking about and that you struggle with, and that's okay, I think. And Jörg's piece touches me very deeply, but he can do that to me, to many people. The Couperin studies, the Adès piece, also touches me in its kind of delicacy and its respectfulness. I really wouldn't want to decide.
Now we can listen to Les Amusements, the first movements of the four studies from Couperin. Hvala orkestru za izvedbo Adesove barvite glasbe. Zdaj pa nadaljujemo s pogovorom, tokrat s skladateljem Widmannom.
So then let's just start. Before Maia starts the conversation off, I just wanted to thank you, Jörg, that you could join us here. And we haven't seen each other in a while, but we go way back, and it's always such a pleasure to see you and to follow your all your amazing activities. And for me, as of lately, very much to play your music and to get to know more and more of your music, which I feel very close to. So for me, it's really exciting to talk to you about that as well. And welcome.
My pleasure, Philip, and I just can say the same. It was really such a tragedy in a way. We were supposed to meet, as you remember, in New York with
Yes.
with the choral quartet, and due to COVID-19, exactly that was one of the first projects which could not happen.
Yeah.
Therefore, even more, I'm very, very happy we can talk about this, and I would love to be in Ljubljana. I've been only once in my life in Ljubljana, and I played a concert in Ljubljana, but I was really young, something like 18, 19, 20 or so. So I'm very, very happy we can talk.
Thank you. Hello, Jörg. As I understand it, all music materials, tonal and dissonant, are equally meaningful to you. Not only that, in your choral quartet, your intention was to wipe away any feeling of tonal language as positive and dissonant as being negative. Could you expand a bit on that, how you think that it comes across to an audience that predominantly is used to this dichotomy?
Well, at least I question it. I would not say, I would for sure not go as far as what you mentioned, to wipe away. I mean, we're living in an age which loves to wipe away things. I am the last one who wants to contribute to this, but I at least wanted to question in this piece if necessarily always a tonal chord means, oh, that's where I'm at home, and a modern sound or even air sound, noises, necessarily mean distortion and being disturbed by something unknown. And I, for sure, at the beginning of the piece, it still has, I don't know if the old meaning, but the tonal chord has for sure a different meaning in the beginning of the piece than in the end of the piece. So that's what I would hope for, that in the listener, something changes. And when you hear the chorale, which has something of a consolation, of course, at the beginning, but when it's written in 4 fortes towards the end, it almost has the function not as an enemy, that would be too much, but of something which is really a challenge for the ear and for your perception. And after hearing that, one of these subtle noises, these things, you might by that time feel at home in this world. So it's many questions I want to ask, but music can do that. And for sure, the chorale quartet, to say it in one sentence, is not a piece with an exclamation mark. So, statement. It reflects many things, and it's many question marks, this chorale quartet.
Okay, thank you. There is another question I would
Actually,
really
sorry,
like. Yes?
Can I?
Yes.
Because you were just talking about the chorale, and so this is a question that it's maybe slightly dangerous for me to ask because I might look really stupid. But is this chorale? Is it your chorale, or
Yes.
did you? I see. You didn't take it from.
Yes.
It's not,
it might sound familiar. I would not be unhappy about it.
Yeah.
But not a classical or even Bach chorale or anything like that. That was important for me, that it's absolutely my material in this world and also in this noise, white noise area that I create and I question. But it's a good question, because that literally means composing, right? Putting together things. So at first reading, of that piece, there might be maybe also your musicians. That would be my question. I would be interested in how the rehearsals were. You might be surprised, because some people might say, well, he should make up his mind. Either he writes a tonal piece with this chorale, or he writes a new music cliche piece with all these noises. I personally am more interested in combining two things in a new way and see what.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, when we first rehearsed it, I think it's interesting. In the beginning, it's lots of reading, because there are so many special effects and so many special techniques that and when you play through, you can't read it then. No, you need to know, see it and know what you're doing. So it's a lot of that. And then I think it's immediately that sense, okay, yeah, this holds together beautifully, and this creates tension, and that you get that feeling like it's a great piece. You get that very, very soon. But maybe that's exciting then.
Which element will prevail in the end,
Exactly.
And that's how I feel. It's not anymore the question. And what comes in the end but that's a clear historical reference to the Haydn, 7 Last Words, which is a clear homage to. So the very last end, this outburst, tremolo.
Yeah.
That a clear reference to the Haydn, because I found it and still find it so ingenious in this piece. And Shostakovich was influenced by it, writing only slow movements, in the Haydn, and only the last one, the terremoto, the earthquake. So that's what it's very, very much inspired by, in the background, on my sketches. And by the way, I wrote it partly at this table here in Berlin, where I'm sitting now. And so for my sketches, it said earthquake, right? So this last ending, and the whole ending questions the whole piece, no?
Yeah.
So this outburst, and sometimes I ask ensembles, orchestras at this place, leave the sphere of a slow movement. It should sound like the beginning of an allegro molto movement, but it turns out it's not a movement, it's the end of the piece.
I would like to add to this specific question, to this specific theme, if I can, what I'm wondering a lot about lately, when I was speaking with composers, and I would hear about computer programs that they use to compose. I know that Widmann, you do not use any such programs, and you wouldn't even dream of it. So I am very curious for you to explain, what does it mean philosophically or artistically for someone to have a computer program which probably also gives its own mark to the composition? What is the philosophy that you subscribe to here?
It's a very good question. What came to my mind, and forgive me if I say this as the first part of my answer, to talk about philosophy in the country and city of Slavoj Žižek. Who am I? I am a great admirer of him. Therefore, first of all, I don't want to make a big philosophy out of it, because for me, that's how I grew up. And for me still, I'm sitting here at my table, and these things, they are still important for me. And for me, it is a difference if I write something and I look at it again the next day, and in the Beethoven, how Beethoven, he crosses it out furiously. To me, that makes a difference than pressing delete key. that's still not philosophical, but I can just say for me, it's such an adventure, each new piece. So at least I'm happy if, I'm also in the newspaper, I'm some of the people, hopelessly old-fashioned maybe in this respect, who love to have the newspaper in their hands. I can read the same text online, nothing against it. I don't have anything philosophically against these media, because these media can be absolutely misused, horribly misused, or they can be used in a good sense. So therefore, it's not the fault of the media itself. I personally prefer to write by hand. To me, yes. It makes even huge orchestra scores. I show you one thing. It's just here. So a typical score of mine, when in the final draft, it looks like that, But the first sketch, that's a sketch of a piece I wrote here for the Boulez Ensemble in Berlin for Daniel Barenboim. Look, this is my sketches. So poor people who have to read this. I can't. But, these two processes, sketches, next step, final draft, I think because my music changes all the time, this I don't want to change. The way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. I think your music is also very haptic. So, it feels like it's real, you can touch it. And maybe that has to do with that also, like a kind of a sensuality in the process of writing.
But Philip, also it has to do with something which we share and which we have in common, which is we're musicians. So it's something physical. You have the cello in your hand and between your legs. I have my clarinet in the hands. My instrument has to do with breathing. So it is something physical. I hope one can feel it in my compositions. I would at least not be ashamed of it. When I write a Bartók pizzicato, back, the energy before this outburst, I feel physically, believe me. When I write a huge orchestra score in an opera, I'm not just notating, Bartók Pizz. I feel the energy of the player playing the Bartók Pizz inside. If it's something good or bad, I don't know, but that's how it is.
Pred nadaljevanjem pogovora s skladateljem Widmannom se najprej prepustimo njegovemu koralnemu kvartetu, ki je nastal po navdihu 7 poslednjih Kristusovih besed Josefa Haydna. Prisluhnimo prvi polovici skladbe, ki nam bo mestoma res morda priklicala simbolno drgnjenje in brušenja lesa ob kožo. In today's world, if we think about it, every aspect of our lives is being politicized and is subject to ideology now. Everything from the way we eat food or the way we use transportation, the way we live, listen to music. And it came to me that this creates a lot of tension in the collective and in the individual. Is music our outlet, do you think?
What do you mean by outlet? I just, in language, I don't...
Is music a healing for us?
A healing.
The sense that it has the potential for us to not only release the tension of living in this world, but of coming into contact with something within ourselves, you know, a sort of healing.
That's a very, very important question. It can, of course, sometimes it isn't. But talking about aesthetics, the difficult thing about that, if I would say simply yes to your question, yes, music can be a healing and our job should be, which it is, partly, or many parts of it, then one could easily accuse us, or me in this case, of, well, escaping. You know, there's the real world with all the ideologies and all the cultural fights, which get worse every day, and so on. And the artist, you know, goes to the ivory tower and writes his symphonies. I'm far away from that. But I want to give you one example, historical example. For example, Robert Schumann, who I adore so much, his music. You know, he was sitting in middle of Germany, today East Germany at that time, middle of 19th century. He could hear the cannonballs, you know, from the post-Napoleonic Wars. That's what he heard. What did he compose? Fairy tales. You know, it would be so easy to say, well, he escapes the reality, so that's what Nietzsche, by the way, Nietzsche, he accused Schumann harshly for that, for being an escapist. But if you look carefully at these fairy tales for clarinet, viola, and piano by Schumann, a late piece, Opus 132, you will see the most extraordinary things, and you will see that he, of course, reflects very much what was going on, like a, how is it in English, like a seismograph, like the things
yes.
which can measure earthquakes, right?
Yes.
So he feels it. For example, it's again, and Schumann makes it easy for his critics to accuse him of that. Why? Because in clarinet and viola comes a melody, boom, 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 boom. You could even say, well, it's harmless. What's that? What does the piano play at the same time? So it's something extremely not peaceful in it. So I think he reflects reality. Yes, he writes fairy tales, but he reflects. I don't want to compare who are we, but of course, I still write for string players in this case, and for 3 wind players and celesta. But of course, I hope it reflects our world. I'm far away from being escapist, but yes, on the other hand, I use old forms. And yes, finally, I believe absolutely in the healing quality of music in general and in society. Also, call me completely naive. Maybe you are right. But if I stop believing in that, then I should not continue making.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right there. And if we think about like the Greeks when they were writing their tragedies and their comedies, they were either trying to have empathy, produce empathy in the audience, or self-mockery. No, these two, and because they felt like that makes you better. You feel bad for someone else, or you laugh, or you can laugh about yourself. These two things, and so sometimes you wonder: do people really get better when they listen to a Mahler 2 or something, maybe for a few minutes. But that is so much. That is such a huge thing, and it, because it sets the bar, and then we know we can feel where we should be, and we are so far away from that, in the daily life. But if we can feel it, it's different, and only music can do that. No, it can give you you can't even really say what it is, but you know where you want to go.
Exactly. Even if your performance of the choral quartet with the musicians together will create for the audience a feeling, and for the musicians, a feeling of togetherness, which is missing so much in these COVID times, then we have reached it already. We can always do better. But in these times, even this gesture of together, and I feel that in this piece, because there's so much silence in it, you have even expresses a longing for together. All right now, I think in these days, we are longing for it, for coming together, and how lucky we are. We can come together, at least as musicians. And, I must say, even, especially in these days, things which are daily life for us, to hear a double bass tuning on, recently in a project in Munich, I was almost crying because I could physically feel the vibrations of this double bass so close. I don't want to exaggerate. I don't want to, but if we can create this feeling of togetherness, and this music can do, in a slow Mozart movement, if an audience collectively together, stops breathing, or the heartbeat is in the same way for these 6 minutes of adagio of Mozart clarinet concerto. Yes, maybe we cannot do much, but this we can do.
Jörg, I think it's so beautiful what you say, and you're touching on something that's really important, that what we're realizing maybe now, maybe we haven't realized it so much before, I haven't, the importance of the audience and how much the audience is part of the performance moment. And what you say, that collective feeling, and the whole audience, it doesn't happen every day, but when it happens, that the whole audience feels it, the musicians feel it, that of course makes us better also, and it confirms us as part of a society, of a good society, and that is so important, and that's what we are now. Yeah, we are craving that now, no? Because we can do it amongst us with the musicians. I mean, this concert also is going to be without audience, of course, and distanced and masks and things. And when it happens, then we know how much we need people.
Yes,
exactly.
How much we need to be together, and
Yes.
Thank you so much for that perspective, both maestros.
Jörg, it's been such a pleasure
My
to see
pleasure.
you here. We met many years ago at the Juilliard School in New York.
We studied.
Yeah, we studied there. And we were the
94, 95,
something like that. Yeah, and we were the only Germans in the school, so we sought each other out, of course. And I was then so impressed because you were studying with Henze at the time, I think.
Yes.
And so you knew all these incredible people, and you
were reading incredible things. You read Philipp von Steinaecker.
Oh yes.
I remember. You did. And
have you found your way to Dodera?
Books which I'm still on the way, but I will. Thanks to you, I will continue. No, but please give everybody in the orchestra my very, very best greetings. You're doing particularly this piece. I can't say why, but exactly what we concluded our conversation with, the togetherness, and which is missing so much. This piece does not make it easy, players and for the listeners. But I feel once it happens in this piece, it will say something about this situation too, in which we are in, and maybe a possible way out. I mean, the end leaves many question marks, but I have the impression at the end of the piece, there is an opened door, and we as society, we can decide where to go, or every individual. Maybe I don't want to be. Now I was more precise than I pretended to be at the beginning of our.
Yes, thank you.
So this has been so inspiring. I can't wait to rehearse now. And Jörg, thank you so much. And I really, Chiara sends her love also. She told me before. And Chiara is my wife. And I hope we see each other soon, and we make music together very, very soon.
Great, Philip. All best, Maia.
All the best to you too.
Ciao, alles Liebe.
Tako, pripluli smo do konca naše izobraževalne sobotne matineje. Upam, da ste izvedeli kaj zanimivega o glasbi, ki jo boste z vsemi presenečeni vred lahko napolno zaužili 17. marca v sklopu abonmaja same orkestrske skladbe. Lepo vabljeni.